Dr. Efraim Zuroff, on one of your rare visits to the international headquarters of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, our chief Nazi hunter, devoted your life to the issue of bringing Nazi war criminals before the bar of justice. We know the figure of 6 million Jews, gypsies who were mass murdered, other victims of Nazi war crimes and crimes against humanity. Do we have an approximate figure of how many people participated in these crimes in Europe?
Well, to this day, there's certainly no exact number, but we're talking about many hundreds of thousands of people, at least many hundreds of thousands of people, because if you define the term Nazi war criminal as anyone who, in the service of Nazi Germany or allied with Nazi Germany, was actively involved in persecution and or murder of innocent civilians, the numbers are simply staggering.
Simon Wiesenthal, after whom we are named, in whose honor, brought 1,100 Nazi war criminals before the bar of justice during the difficult years of the Cold War primarily. What percentage of the criminals have never been brought to justice?
I think it's clearly the majority of the people, because naturally after the war the focus was on the major perpetrators. But as a result, so many hundreds of thousands of people who were out there, in some cases murdering Jews on a daily basis for prolonged periods of time, it was simply ignored. And of course there's no such thing as perfect justice. There's no hope, there was never any hope of bringing every single person to justice. But the problem is that far too many of these people escaped prosecution, and it wasn't clear from after the Holocaust to this day that if you commit crimes like this, you'll almost certainly be held accountable.
We're now in 2013. There are a number of active cases. Perhaps the most prominent one is in Hungary, involving a man who's quite elderly. Can you tell us about the Shatari case?
Laszlo Csátáry was a police officer, senior police officer in the city of Košice, which was under Hungarian occupation during World War II. And he played a key role in the deportation to the Auschwitz death camp of some 15,700 Jews from Košice and its environs. Csátáry was notorious as a sadist, someone who walked around the Košice ghetto with a dog whip, randomly beating people and torturing people. And after the war he was actually put on trial in Czechoslovakia, was sentenced to death for his role, but by then he had escaped to the West. Lived for many years in Canada. In the 90s his past was exposed and he was stripped of his Canadian citizenship, and he voluntarily left Canada, but no one knew where he was. And in the framework of Operation Last Chance, our project which offers financial rewards for information which will facilitate the prosecution and punishment of Nazi war criminals, someone gave us information on his current whereabouts in Budapest. It turns out that information was completely accurate. We brought the case to the attention of the Hungarian authorities in September of 2011. They confirmed what we already knew, his identity, and began an investigation. And just last month he was finally charged, officially charged by the government with the crimes in relation to his role in Košice. And we hope that within the next about 50 days he'll be put on trial in Budapest.
So the man's 98. Elderly.
Listen, let me just point out one interesting point. When we gave in the information to Hungarian prosecutors, Csátáry was still driving his car in the streets of Budapest. Now, I don't know if I wanted to be in the streets of Budapest when he was driving there, but it's a fact. He was driving there. So why ignore the guy? The key point is a person's physical and mental health. There's absolutely no reason to ignore a person simply because it says on his passport his date of birth is 1915 or 1917 or 1920 or 1922.
What about the accusation that the Wiesenthal Center religiously gets from critics at the BBC and elsewhere that the motivation is not justice but vengeance? How do you answer that? It's your whole life's work.
Well, very simply. First of all, we are the followers of Simon Wiesenthal, who made it clear, justice, not revenge. Revenge or vengeance would be to take the law in our own hands. We know exactly who these people are, what they did, where they lived. And we're not attempting to in any way harm them, or as I said, to take the law into our own hands. We are turning them over to the legal authorities of the countries in which they live, the countries which should be putting these people on trial, which is either the country which sent them to commit the crime, or the country of the crime where the crime was committed.
You have a project right now, it's a poster campaign across Germany. Late, but not too late. You're here to report about it here in the U.S. What's the reaction been among Germans to the launch?
Listen, I have to say that even I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the enormous number of reactions that we got. We've been flooded with information, dozens of phone calls on the toll-free line, dozens of emails to us in Israel, to the address in Germany, and to the headquarters here in Los Angeles. Now, of course, not every single one of those calls gives us serious information. As a matter of fact, some of the people actually want the poster, which actually made a tremendous impression, I think.
Tell us a little bit more. How many posters were there, and where was it put up?
Okay, first of all, a few words about how we went about doing this. We have invested months of work to prepare an approach to German companies to get their support to publicize Operation Last Chance 2, which offers rewards for information and was launched in the wake of the Demjanjuk conviction. The Demjanjuk conviction in May of 2011 totally changed the legal landscape in Germany as it relates to Nazi war criminals. For decades, German prosecutors could not present the case to the courts unless they could prove that a suspect committed a specific crime against a specific victim. Now, for people who served in places like Treblinka, Sobibor, Chelmno, Belzec, the Nazi death camps, or in the Einsatzgruppen, this was very, very difficult to prove. And the German prosecutors, for years, only focused on the officers. Now, the practical implication of that was that hundreds of people who were out there killing Jews on a daily basis over a prolonged period of time were ignored by the German legal system. But in the wake of the Demjanjuk conviction, the fact that he was charged for his service as an armed SS guard in Sobibor, with no proof presented to the court of a specific crime against a specific victim, meant that for the first time, all we have to prove is service. Service can be proved by documents. We don't have to find a survivor, and there are almost no survivors left of the death camps or the Einsatzgruppen, to prove that this person committed murder. So now it is much, much easier. Had this change been made decades ago, it would have led to hundreds of cases, maybe even more than that. But now we're in a position to do this, and this is why we relaunch now. We worked months to prepare an approach to the German companies and foundations. We approached a total of 86 of the leading German companies and foundations. 3 were willing to help us, and now apparently a 4th is going to contribute to this effort. But it's thanks to especially the Wahl company, which is a company that has public advertising space. We were able to put up 2,000 posters, 1,000 in Berlin, 500 in Hamburg, 500 in Cologne, and I have to say the reaction has just been unbelievable.
Well, Dr. Zuroff, a worthy partner and heir to the late Simon Wiesenthal, thank you for your efforts, and we look forward to hearing more about the results of this final campaign.
Thank you very much.